picture does not look much like the ones that we're used to seeing today, does it? And for a very good reason. It was made over 70 years ago. The factory in Detroit, Michigan that made this card belonged to a man by the name of Henry Ford. How did Henry Ford come to make cars for the people of America? I think we should find out. 12-year-old Henry Ford called...
Dad, stop the horses. Look what's coming. A steam engine.
Mr. Ford brought the wagon to a stop. Henry jumped off the seat and ran ahead. He had seen engines at the railroad station in the city, but never before on a road here in Dearborn. The driver stopped the engine so that Henry could see it. He said,
"This is used to run machinery on some of the farms."
Henry asked many questions because he wanted to know all about the engine. The driver told Mr. Ford,
"That's a bright boy you have there. He should make a good farmer."
Mr. Ford shook his head sadly.
Henry can fix tools and almost anything else, but he doesn't like farm work.
If we had an engine, I would.
Then and there, Henry had a dream, but he did not tell his father. He would make a smaller engine so farmers could use it in place of horses. His engine would pull wagons and make farm work easier. And best of all, it would move a carriage faster than any horse could. When Henry was through with high school, Mr. Ford wanted him to stay on the farm. Oh, but Henry said,
Farm life is not for me. I'm going to the city. I'll work in a machine shop where I can learn more about tools and engines. You can't make engines on a farm.
He had not forgotten his dream of making an engine that would pull a carriage. The city of Detroit was not far from Dearborn. There, Henry found work in a machine shop. Every day, Henry worked hard at the shop, learning all he could about engines. One day, he read about a new engine. It burned gasoline, and it was not as large as a steam engine. Henry thought he could make one too. Maybe it could pull a carriage. Was this the answer to his dream? He visited his father in Dearborn and told him his plans. Mr. Ford said,
"That would be a fine thing for farmers. Why don't you stay here and build your engine?"
And so Henry stayed. Every day he'd cut wood, milked the cows, and helped his father. At night, he worked on his engine, making most of the parts himself. When he was not working, Henry liked to be with girls like Clara Bryant. She lived on a nearby farm. Clara and Henry grew to love each other, and at last she became his wife. One day, Henry asked Clara,
How would you like to move to Detroit? I'll get a daytime job and work on my engine and carriage at night.
Anything you want to do is all right with me, Henry.
Other men were making engines now too, but they were too large. Henry wanted his engine to be small. A little engine would be cheap to make, and it would fit onto a carriage. Henry told Clara,
Horses won't always be needed to pull carriages or wagons. If I can make an engine that doesn't cost much, everyone can buy one.
Why, then everyone will have a horseless carriage.
Clara thought that Henry was very smart. Oh, but some people called him Crazy Ford. They said his horseless carriage would never work. At last, Henry's engine was ready. His car was really like an open carriage with 4 large wheels. The gasoline engine that Henry had made was under the seat. He started the engine, climbed onto the seat, and off he went. The car really ran. Crazy Ford, ha! His horseless carriage worked, and his dream was real. Of course, there is a lot more to know about Henry Ford and about the cars that came after that first one. So perhaps you will want to read this book, Henry Ford, by Adrian Paradis. When it became possible for families to buy a car, imagine the excitement of taking the very first ride in such an automobile. we're going to visit the Walker family on the day that they get the second car in town. Ellen Walker looked at the clock. Too early for dinner. She tried to read her book. Too excited to read, because today was the day. After dinner, the automobile was coming, the second car in town. Dr. Payson had the first automobile. It was black and shiny. Dr. Payson had no children, just Mrs. Payson, and she did not like children. So no children rode in Dr. Payson's car. Mr. Walker's car would welcome children, Ellen, Kate, Fred, and their friends. Ellen went to the stairs. She heard the clatter of dishes. Down she ran to the dining room. Their mother was putting dinner on the table. But Ellen was not hungry. Her father asked,
Too excited to eat? You're missing the finest dinner in all Hancock County.
After dinner, Ellen went back to her room. She put her duster on over her dress. It would keep off the dust when she rode in the automobile. Ellen put on her hat and tied it under her chin. The hat would keep her hair in place when she rode in the automobile. Ellen looked in the mirror. She was ready to go. Outside, she heard a sound. It was the horn of the second car in town. Ellen raced out the door to the street. She beat Kate, she beat Fred, she beat their father, but their mother beat Ellen. The automobile salesman showed Ellen's father how to start the car. He showed Ellen's brother Fred how to stop the car. Mrs. Walker climbed up onto the high back seat. Kate climbed up onto the high jump seat. She called down to Ellen.
Why, I feel like a princess.
Ellen walked around the car. She saw the gleaming headlights. She saw the horn. She saw the wide running board. Her mother called,
Ellen, come up with me.
Mrs. Walker opened one of the little doors to the back seat.
Isn't this fun?
The yard was filling with friends and relatives. Mr. Hooper from next door said,
Mr. Walker, that is a handsome automobile.
Well, thank you. We'll take the children for a ride.
Fred's friends climbed onto the running board. Kate's friends crowded onto the jump seat. Ellen's best friend, Jean, sat beside her. As Ellen spread the duster over Jean's skirt, she whispered,
I feel like a queen.
Mr. Walker started the automobile. The car salesman sat beside him. They putt-putted up the hill and headed out of town toward the country. The automobile tore along the road at 20 miles an hour. Ellen hung on to her hat. Mrs. Walker hung on to Ellen. She called to her husband.
Careful, Will.
Fred grinned at his sisters.
Slick. We're going like greased lightning.
A horse reared up, a cow mooed, some hens clucked as the car sped by. They got to Mr. Sawyer's farm. Mr. Sawyer stood by his mailbox. Mrs. Sawyer stood beside him, and their 3 grown-up sons leaned on the fence. Mr. Sawyer muttered,
Oh, some contraption.
In the road was a big mud puddle. In the puddle was Mr. Sawyer's pig. She was taking a mud bath. Mr. Walker slowed up so the red car would not hit the pig. But the car salesman said,
Speed up, or we'll get stuck.
It was too late. The auto motor sputtered and stopped. The car salesman shook his head in disgust. Mr. Walker looked at the pig. Then he looked at Mr. Sawyer. Mr. Sawyer said,
Pig was there first.
Mr. Walker nodded. The pig liked her bath. She rubbed herself all over in the mud. The children started to giggle, but the car salesman looked cross. He jumped out of the car. Whoops! His feet slipped out from under him and he landed right in the mud puddle. He got to his feet and sloshed through the water to the front of the automobile. Angrily, he turned the crank. The motor coughed, but it did not start. He turned the crank again. Nothing happened. Everyone in the car kept still. The Sawyers smiled at one another, and Ellen heard Mr. Sawyer say,
Yep,
The darn pig was there first.
The car salesman turned the crank once more. The motor sputtered and caught on. The pig looked at the car in a surprised way and waddled over to Mrs. Sawyer. The car salesman hopped back into the front seat. His clothes were dripping wet. To Mr. Walker, he said,
Pull the throttle. Not too hard, but hard enough to get us out of here.
Mr. Walker pulled the throttle. Not too hard, but hard enough to get the automobile out of the puddle. Mr. Walker honked the horn. The children cheered. They waved at the Sawyer family, and the Sawyers waved back. Fred shouted,
Give her all she's got, Pa.
Mr. Walker raced the car back toward town. At 1 Mile Corner, Tubby Brown was waiting with his fish cart. He looked as if he might fall right off the cart.
Land sakes, what tarnation is that?
Fred called.
Look out for the fastest car on the road.
Tubby shook his head.
Beats all.
The automobile rushed past. Near Marsh Bridge, a boy was driving a prancing horse and an elegant buggy with a lady in the back seat. The boy looked back over his shoulder when he heard the car's horn honking politely, asking to get by. But he would not move over. With a touch of his whip, he urged his horse onward. Ellen saw her father's face redden. The automobile, which had slowed down, began to pick up speed as Mr. Walker urged it onward. Faster and faster went the car, past the lady who looked at the automobile with her mouth wide open, past the boy who was now whipping the horse with all his might, past the elegant horse who had never been passed before. Shaking her fist at the boy, Ellen yelled,
Put that whip down.
Kate was surprised.
Mother, did you hear Ellen yell?
Good for her. I never did take to people who hurt animals.
As they came to the village, Mr. Walker slowed down. With dignity, the automobile rolled down Main Street, red paint shining, brass gleaming. Mr. Walker told his passengers,
This afternoon, you young folk entered a new age in history. With automobiles of your own, you will go places and see sights we old folk never dreamed of.
And then Mr. Walker squeezed the horn, and they waved to the people watching on Main Street. And that was The Second Car in Town by Miriam Bourne. Wouldn't it have been fun to ride in one of those early automobiles? For today, goodbye.
The preceding program was made possible by a grant from the Ohio Department of Education.